I'm Liz Bernier with HIPA, and this is HR Today. I'm here with HIPA's CEO, Bill Greenhalgh,
Hi,
and
Liz.
you just delivered a session called The Future's Not Ours to See yesterday.
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So would you like to tell us a little bit about your session?
Yes, the whole concept of the future is not ours to see goes back to the old Doris Day song,
Okay.
Que sera, sera. And the point about that is that it's a conception that many people have, that you can't predict the future. And the reality is, one of the quotes that I used in the session was, the future that you see is largely the future you get. And so if we don't see the future in some way, we're not going to get the one we want. So basically, we better not have a situation where the future's not ours to see. It better be ours to see. And so one of the points I made in the presentation itself, in the session, was that I started working slowly on this presentation about 4 months ago. I didn't finish doing it until 6 o'clock yesterday morning, about 4 hours before the presentation, because I've had like about 7 or 8 different versions of it, because things have happened so quickly and it changes so dramatically that it's really difficult to keep up. And my background originally is nuclear engineering. I designed atomic weapons for 3 years for a living.
Wow.
And I'm a sort of a techie nerd in a way, and I read all this stuff, and I'm drowning. I mean, there's so many different things going on. But basically what I talked about in the session itself was how machine intelligence, or how artificial intelligence, whatever you want to call it, has evolved over the last little while. It goes from the 1950s, when it was Alan Turing, who was a mathematician that helped with the Enigma coding in the Second World War. He came up with this concept of what artificial intelligence was. Essentially, if you could deal with somebody behind a screen, or a machine behind a screen, and you could deal with it in a way that you couldn't tell if it was human or machine, that was the definition of artificial intelligence. That was theoretical. It went through the development of tic-tac-toe. It was programmed through the development of, everybody knows about Ken Jennings being beaten by the IBM Watson machine, and up to the point where Google Go, the computer, beat the best champion in the world at the Go game. And the Go game has more combinations than there are atoms in the universe, supposedly.
Wow.
And so, whereas you go back, and a lot of this stuff was done initially when Garry Kasparov was beaten at chess, it was about brute force, just analyzing millions and millions of combinations. By the time it got to Google Go, the people who put the programs and the algorithms in didn't know what the computer was doing.
Okay.
They gave it the rules, they let it play the games, and it developed the games on its own, and the winning options and things like that. It learned. It's called machine learning, and basically it beat its champion of the world at a game that people thought was impossible. But that's not the ultimate development. This week, there's another computer based on the same basis, and it played the 4 best champions of the world at a poker game called Heads Up, No Limit, Texas Hold'em.
Okay.
Which sounds kind of odd. I don't know what the game actually does, but I know that it involves a lot of bluffing, a lot of reading, a lot of judgment. There are more unknowns than there are knowns, because you have to kind of figure out what other people might do. Well, this computer, it was a 4-week program, 4-week competition. 3 weeks, they gave in because it had all the money. It won $1.5 million. And so the experts are saying that this development is the last frontier between machine and human intelligence. That in fact, because it's now using judgment, and again, the programmers didn't know how it was doing, and towards the end of the game, the 4 people playing this game against the computer started they started talking to each other about the strategy and the plans. The computer still beat them.
Wow.
It still beat them. And it got better as the games went on because it was learning. And so the point I was making in all this is, like, what kind of future does this mean for us? Is it like the robots take over the world, or is it going to be much more benign, where it's a kind of a combined people automation? What will the intelligence revolution bring us? And then I went into some suggestions about what it really meant for HR in terms of some of the things that we needed to do going forward. So that was the essence of the presentation itself, and I think it was a little bit far out there, but it was. I think it's thought-provoking.
So what does it mean for HR going forward?
Well, I think the points that I was making on this is that there are so many changes in the world, and it's not just technology, but it's also globalization and some of the economic changes, political changes, what's going to happen in Europe and Brexit, what's happening in the US, a whole bunch of different things. That for organizations, they need to have a really, really clear idea of what business they're in. And that sounds like it's very simple, but it ain't. It really isn't. I gave two examples. One of them is Kodak, who always said they were in the business of making memories. You go back, their whole thing was about we make memories and whatever. They were in the film business. Now, nobody ever said we're in the making memory business on film. We're in the making memories business. They invented the digital camera. One of their engineers went to the board in the mid-70s and said, okay, we've got this digital camera, why don't we make memories that way? And they said, nah, never going to happen.
Okay.
Because they were so invested in film as their medium that they couldn't get around that paradigm. And of course, Kodak went bankrupt. Fuji said, oh, we understand what's happening. They got into cameras and they're still around. And the reason that resonates with HR is because in the surveys we've done about what companies look for in HR is they're saying absolutely they need to do the transactional stuff, they need to deal with union negotiations, they need to deal with all the kind of talent management stuff. The one thing we'd like them to do is also to be a visionary of the future, the custodians of the future. Be a little bit detached from what motivates everybody else in the company, what they get paid for, what their drivers are, and just be a bit more objective and sort of raise a flag when we're not going in the right direction. That's one example. I had a personal one that I shared with them. I was running a company called Cinram that made compact discs and DVDs, and we were in the kind of the success period. I mean, I was there in 2000, 2001 when we introduced DVDs, and the market was going up. It was going crazy. This is a $1.6 billion a year public company.
Wow.
And my view at the time was, we need to be sure what business we're in. And within the company, the business was, we're in the manufacturing of CDs, so we're molding and manufacturing and shipping and whatever. My view was that, no, that's not quite right. We're in the business of delivering content, entertainment content, to people wherever they want it, in whatever format they want. Okay. It sounds like the same thing, but it's different. Because if you think you're in the CD manufacturing business, then you have big machines. If you're in the delivery of content, well, maybe the machines might look different. They might be downloading, they might be transmission. What we have today, which is the internet, and we have all the different Spotify and whatever that does streaming and home delivery. People really don't care too much about the medium they get it in. What they're interested in is the ultimate result, which is the entertainment that they get. And so Cinram, in fact, I left just shortly after that because I couldn't convince that was the way to go. Okay. And Cinram today, I'm not sure, I think they're still around, but they're in a very different business, they're very much smaller. So one of my points major points to in HR is that they need to be really sure about what kind of business their organization is in. The one other thing that I said to them was that when we look at talent management, we need to start thinking about not just people as being in the talent pool, but how does automation, how do these automated intelligence systems and processes and robots, how do they mesh with and fit in and merge with the human capability? It's not that human capability is ever going to disappear, but there are some, you look at history and routinely, the kind of the transactional, low-level administrative functions everywhere are rapidly being automated. And that's one thing that I think other CEOs said about HR people. They wanted them to have the strategic perspective in terms of talent and what the organization was about and how do we get the right people to drive the organization and the right culture and engagement. Well, that's the really important thing. And some of the other transactional stuff can be outsourced or downloaded or whatever. And I gave them an example of a legal firm in New York, which has just hired Watson, IBM Watson computer, as a bankruptcy lawyer.
Wow, okay.
So they have a virtual lawyer in their office. So, they could have said, oh, we have a vacancy for a bankruptcy lawyer. We're going to go and poach the people at the other firm. We're going to offer them more money or a partnership or whatever, which is the traditional way. They said, no, we're not going to do that. What we are going to do is we're going to talk to IBM and see if we can load it up with all the information on bankruptcy and have a virtual lawyer on our staff. And it turns out this virtual lawyer is actually better
Wow.
than many of the other lawyers on the staff.
Oh, wow.
It gathers the information more quickly, it has better memory, integrates it all together, comes up with the recommendations. Doesn't appear in court, but not yet.
Not quite yet.
No.
Okay.
So those are the kind of areas that we talked about.
Great. Okay. So on the topic, I know HRPA has gone through some changes recently, and existing in that environment of rapid change. And I know in your role, there's a lot of focus on strategy and forward thinking. Is there anything you'd like to share with members about exciting things in the future?
I think there's a number of different things that are happening. There's the ongoing activity around the Act, but in terms of how this activity and technology and all the changes, there's one major program that we have coming up in 2017, and in fact we just started it, which is exactly about the topic I was talking about, which is to do with what I talked about at the session, was about how changing technology will impact jobs. And we want to try and figure out, first of all, we're looking at 2030, which is 12, 13 years out. So we're looking at the kind of jobs that might impact, how many of them are there, what impact it might have, what does that mean for government policy. Everybody talks about the living wage or the standard amount that people should be paying. Does that require a government policy on that? What does it mean for education and training? What does it mean for HR in terms of the jobs that might disappear, the industries they're in, or which ones might be affected? So it has huge implications, and we hope to finish that by around about May or June this year, and then we'll start feeding the information out. And I think that's a really, really important innovation. It's like it's part of our thought leadership program. I mean, there's a bunch of other areas of research that we'll be looking at, but that's one I think that is a major project. We're doing it with Deloitte. And the reason that it's important to do it now and to start acting now is because these things won't just happen in 2030. It isn't like we'll wait till then and all of a sudden they're all going to happen. There'll be a migration, and these things will start to change. And when you look at education, for example, kids going into programs right now, 18, 19, 20 in the next few years, they're going to be in their 30s when this kicks in. And so they need to go through the educational programs about how to learn, basically. Not so much the knowledge itself, but how to learn and keep updated as these things change. So, and in terms of government policy, it takes a long time to get to work its way through. So that's why we need to get it done now. We need to make decisions, in the next 2 to 3 years, because they will start to impact us in 10 or 12 years' time.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
It. I'm Liz Bernier, and this is HR Today. Thanks for watching.